Hello everyone, welcome back. We got another news video here to discuss. In today's video, we got a couple more signings to discuss, we got a couple more injury updates to look at, and we're discussing three things, including Saros and what he could be doing in the offseason, including DeBrusk, where he could be headed in the offseason, and Leon Draisaitl, is he staying in Edmonton long term? We'll get to all of that coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the Internet Talk channel. Before we begin this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe down below. Thank you for all your support on our ability with you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section below so I'll discuss in today's video. Now, after my camera debacle last week, we are a little bit backlogged with all the signings that have happened over the past couple of days. So I'm just going to go over the 10 signings that happened from March 19th to March 22nd. I'll get to the rest of them on our video on Thursday. So we've got 10 signings here to talk about. These are mostly ELCs. I think there are 9 ELCs and one that's an actual NHL contract, so we'll talk about these here first. The Dallas Stars have given an ELC to Luke Kreis, who's a right-shot defenseman who's undrafted, who's gotten a 2-year ELC with the AV of $870,000 and he'll begin to start next year. Now, Kreis was playing over in the NCAA over the past couple of years. Last year, played in 30 NCAA games, putting up 2 goals, 16 points. This year in 35, has put up 6 goals and 17 points. So he has to play a couple more games, but also has a couple more goals and does have 1 more point. So he looks like a pretty good offensive defenseman at the NCAA level. So far, he's already gone into 2 AHL games, putting up no points as the +1. So I think eventually he could maybe be like a 6th, 7th defenseman at the NHL level. No guarantees or anything, but I do think he has a potentiality there to be a solid D-man there in Dallas long term. So it's a solid sign there for Dallas. Then we saw the Detroit Red Wings signed goaltender Carter Gylander, who is a 2019 7th round pick of theirs, to a 2-year ELC with the AV of $855,000 and he'll begin the start of next year. Now, Gylander has also been playing over in the NCAA over the past couple of years. Last year had a fantastic season in 39 games, putting up a 2.46 GAA and 914 save percentage. This year has been a little bit more of a down year, putting up a 2.93 GAA and a 901 save percentage in 32 games, so not as productive as he was last year, but he's still being a pretty good goaltender there over in the NCAA, and the Bruins could definitely use him now. They have a future, I think, tandem of Augustine and Costa, so I'm not exactly sure how much of an opportunity he'll get at the NHL level, but he should at least be a solid 3rd or 4th goalie in the Detroit system. So that's a pretty good sign there for Detroit. Then we saw the Boston Bruins sign the 1 loan contract extension here, and that was them extending goaltender Michael DiPietro. Now, DiPietro, who was acquired in a Jack deal a couple of years ago, was signed a 1-year contract extension, league minimum $725,000 to remain with the Boston Bruins. Now, there's a very likely chance that Allmark has moved in the offseason, that Brandon Boosties becomes the backup, so they need to cut a little more goaltender depth in that system. So DiPietro, I think, could be a solid 3rd-string option. So far last year, had 1 game of AHL action, putting up a 943 save percentage and a 2.00 GAA. Was also a 918 save percentage and 2.61 GAA in 29 ECHL games. But this year has actually been playing consistently at the AHL level. Put up 27 games played at the AHL level, having a 2.50 GAA and a 917 save percentage. So very good stuff there for DiPietro, and he showed enough that he's earned himself another contract with Boston. So very good stuff there for the Bruins. And then signed New York Rangers, signed 5th round pick in the 2021 draft, Yaroslav Chmelar, who's a right winger, to a 3-year ELC with the AV of $868,000. That'll begin at the start of next year. So that's a very good ELC signing there for the New Rangers. Last year, he played over in the NCAA, putting up 13 points, including 7 goals in 33 games. This year, had 5 goals and 15 points in 26 games. So he played 7 less games and put up 2 more points. Fantastic stuff there from Chmelar. Eventually, maybe he could be a solid, like, 3rd-line winger. Not saying it's a guarantee that'll happen, but still, it's a potentiality there too. So solid ELC signing there for the Rangers to get another young prospect locked up for the next couple of years. Then we saw the St. Louis Blues sign 2023 1st-round pick Theo Lindstein, who's a left-shot defenseman, to a 3-year ELC with the AV of $950,000, and he'll begin the start of next year. So this is a really good sign there for the Blues. Lindstein was a guy who was a lot of people predicted to either be a late 1st-round pick or early 2nd-round pick. He was a late 1st-round pick. Last year, over in the SHL, put up a goal and an assist, 2 points in 32 AHL games. So far this year in Hockey Allsvenskan, has 4 goals and 15 points in 49 Allsvenskan games. So I think there's a very lucky chance he goes back to Hockey Allsvenskan for 1 more season to develop, and then he should be a solid top 4 defenseman there for the Blues. And I expect him to definitely be a solid top 4 defenseman long term there for St. Louis. So to see him get his ELC, very good stuff there for Lindstein. He can hopefully build off of this. Then we saw the Dallas Stars sign another undrafted prospect, this time center Justin Hirokorian, I hope I'm saying that name right, to a 2-year ELC with the AV of $870,000. Now he has also been playing over the NCAA over the past little while. Last year put up 15 goals and 36 points in 35 NCAA games, was over a point per game. This year had an even better season, putting up 13 goals and 43 points in 32 games. So he looked fantastic, even got into 2 AHL games so far after the signing of that contract, putting up an assist. So he looks like a very fantastic player, could eventually be maybe like a 4th or 3rd line center for the Stars. So pretty good signing there, and hopefully he is able to get into some NHL action in the next couple of years and show that he should be able to be at the NHL level. Then we saw the Anaheim Ducks sign undrafted goaltender Thomas Sachanek to a 3-year ELC with a few injured $70,000, and he'll get a start of next year. Now Sachanek has actually been playing over in the AHL this past year. Last year was the last year in the juniors in the WHL, put up a .912 save percentage and a 3.05 GAA in 46 games. This year has been splitting time between San Diego and Tulsa over in the AHL and ECHL, and the AHL he's put up a .914 save percentage, in the ECHL in 8 games, .906. So he's actually been doing better at the AHL level, and looks like he could eventually be a solid, maybe backup goaltender at the NHL level. So a very good sign there for the Ducks. Then we saw the Edmonton Oilers sign undrafted right winger James Stefan to a 3-year ELC with the AV of $870,000 that will begin at the start of next year. Now Stefan has actually been doing quite well, playing the last couple of years in WHL. Last year played 22 goals and 64 points in 64 games, was literally a point per game. This year has 50 goals and 101 points in 67 WHL games. So looks fantastic, could eventually be a solid 3rd line winger for the Edmonton Oilers. So that's a very fantastic pickup there for Edmonton. Then we saw New York Islanders sign undrafted center Cam to a 2-year ELC with AV of $870,000 that'll begin at the start of next year. Now for Thieving, he's been playing also in the NCAA, put 15 goals and 20 points in 40 games last year, had 9 goals and 16 points in 31 games this year, so 4 less points but 9 less games, so that actually look pretty good. So that's a pretty good pickup there for the New York Islanders to get another young center who maybe eventually steps into their lineup. And then we said all the Senators signed 2022 4th round pick center Stephen Halliday. Now Halliday gets a 2-year ELC with the AV of $950,000 that'll begin at the start of next year. Now Halliday looks to be a very fantastic prospect, another good young player there for the Ottawa Senators. He's got 9 goals and 41 points in 40 games last year, and had 10 goals and 36 points in 38 games this year. So last 2 years, hovering around a point per game, been pretty good. So I think eventually it could be a solid 2nd or 3rd line center there for Senators. Probably still going to need a year or 2 in the AHL, but still I think eventually he could be a solid center prospect there for Senators. So just to recap here, we saw Michael DiPietro sign a 1-year deal with the Boston Bruins as he extends his stay there, while we saw Ottawa sign Halliday, NYI signed Thieving, Edmonton signed Stefan, Anaheim signed Sachanek, Dallas signed Hirokarani, St. Louis signed Lindstein, New York signed Chmelar, Detroit signed Guy Launder, and Dallas signed Kreis, all to ELCs, various lengths, and we'll see how those guys do in the AHL for time being. But those are signings we're going to get to here over the last couple of days. No waivers over the past couple of days. Still, last one was Jonathan Gruen a couple weeks ago, so no waiver updates to talk about at this point in time. Going over to a quick injury update here from the past couple of days. First, John Marino was cleared to play, Connor Zary was cleared to play, Vinny Darnay was cleared to play, and Ryan Reeves was cleared to play back on Saturday, so really good news for those guys. But Samsonov had an undisclosed injury and is out day to day. Forsling had an undisclosed injury and is out day to day, so bad news there for the Leafs and the Panthers. Then we saw Curtis McDermott have a lower body injury, as did Curtis Lazar in New Jersey. Both have lower body injuries and out day to day. Noel Acciari has a lower body injury and is out week to week for Pittsburgh. Braden Point and Victor Hedman both have lower body injuries and are out day to day for Tampa Bay Lightning. Aiden Hill has an undisclosed injury, is going to be out for no period of time for Vegas. Tyson Joseph has an undisclosed injury is out day to day for the Sabres. Milano has upper body injuries out for an unknown period of time for the Capitals. We saw Oshie, Protas in Washington, and Drury in Carolina be cleared to play and got back in the game action, so very good stuff there. Then Lindholm has undisclosed injuries out day to day for the Canucks. Gustafsson has upper body injuries out day to day for the Rangers. Scott Mayfield has an ankle injury. He's going to be out for the rest of the season. That's been updated now, so that's a really bad blow for the Islanders to lose their 3rd pair of defensemen for the rest of the season. Oscar Sundqvist has a lower body injury out for an unknown period of time for the Blues. Yoel Edmondson has an undisclosed injury out for a day-to-day period of time for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and Morgan Reilly has an undisclosed injury. It's going to be a game-time decision for tonight's game for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Meanwhile, Mark Giordano in Toronto, Alex Barkov in Florida, and Gustav Forsling in Florida have all been cleared to play and have gone back into game action. So very good news on the injury front. Good to see guys like Barkov being able to get back, Drury, Oshie, Zary, Marino. Good to see all those guys get back. But bad news to see guys like Acciari go down with an injury, Point go down with an injury. Definitely Mayfield to go down with the season-ending injury. That's bad news. And Reilly to go down with an injury, and hopefully those guys are able to come back, and they're not going to be out for an overly long period of time and are able to get back on notches in future. That's all the injury others we're going to talk about here today. And lastly, we're going over to a quick trade rumor piece of the video. Now, we got 3 things here to talk about. We're going to start with Jake DeBrusk. Now, DeBrusk has been mentioned in trade rumors a ton over the past couple of years. I mean, there was a lot of talk that he was going to be traded, then he signed a contract extension, then there was more talk that he was going to be traded. There was even talk, even though the Bruins were in a playoff spot, that he was going to be traded this year, so the Bruins could get that center upgrade they did. They never wound up getting that center upgrade, so he wound up staying on their roster. But there's a lot of talk right now that DeBrusk could wind up leaving via free agency after this year. I mean, the Bruins, we know they're most likely going to move Allmark. They want to take a run at a top-end center, whether that be via trading one or for acquiring one via free agency like a Lindholm, or trading for one like a Logan Couture. So I'm not exactly sure which route they're going to go, but there's a very likely chance they try and go after a first-line center. And if that's true, they're going to need a lot of cap space to do so. So they may not have enough cap space to bring back Jake DeBrusk. So Jake DeBrusk can't go back to Boston. Where does he go after this year? And I think the very likely chance here is where a lot of people were speculating he would be traded to if there was a trade that wound up happening, and that is the Edmonton Oilers. Now, there's a lot of connections there. DeBrusk, I think, is from Edmonton. He's an Edmonton native, and his dad also works there as a commentator, so I'm not overly surprised if he went to Edmonton, but Edmonton's also in their own cap situation, and I'll get to them in a little bit of time, but they do not have a whole overabundance of cap space either. So if he's not able to go to Boston, and Boston doesn't bring him back, and if he's not able to go to Edmonton, they have a little bit of a logjam. I think Edmonton would probably be his preferred destination to go. But if he's not able to go to Edmonton, could he go to one of the other West Canadian teams? I mean, I do wonder about Calgary, Vancouver, and Seattle as a potential option there for the Brusk to go. I mean, Vancouver's a really good team. If they lose Lindholm, they could probably use another top 6 forward. I could see the Brusk going to Vancouver. Calgary's still in the province of Alberta. He would still be sort of home there. Now, I think Calgary's in the midst of a rebuild, so I'm not exactly sure if he would want to go to Calgary. But with their movements that they've made over past a while, he could definitely be fitting in really well in like a top 6 role. For Seattle, they haven't had the best of offensive outputs this year. They could make a little bit of moves. I could see DeBrusk having a really good top 9 role there in Seattle. So I do wonder if after this year, after this season with the Boston Bruins, DeBrusk winds up going to West Canada, or at least the western side of things, and goes to a team like Seattle or Vancouver or Calgary or Edmonton. I think his preferred destination might be Edmonton with the connections he has to the Edmonton Oilers. But if the Oilers can't swing it cap-wise and he doesn't go back to Boston, which I think is also another possibility, but a little bit less likely given the fact that the Bruins need some more cap space, I think there's a very likely chance that DeBrusk goes to either one of Vancouver, Calgary, or Seattle this offseason. So I'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there, but it does seem like DeBrusk is a very likely chance that he doesn't get brought back by the Boston Bruins. And if that is the case, then I think there's a very likely chance he heads to Western Canada, whether that be to Edmonton, Calgary, Seattle, or Vancouver. So I'll have to wait and see on that. Going over to a quick potential trade rumor. Now, we're talking about this a couple of times since the trade deadline. There's a very likely chance in the offseason we see a ton of starting level goaltenders be moved. We talked about guys like John Gibson, Jacob Markstrom, Linus Allmark, UC Saros, who could all be potentially available around the draft, free agency, in the offseason. These guys could all be had for the right price. Now, we talked about some of the teams who could be looking to acquire them. We talked about LA, how they could be looking to try and acquire a goalie. We talked about Ottawa, how they could be in the market for a goaltender. New Jersey, Edmonton. We talked about those guys. But there are 3 teams after looking through the entire NHL who I think could wind up benefiting from adding a guy like a UC Saros in the offseason who could definitely help that team long term. And there were 3 teams. First would be the Detroit Red Wings. I think they're starting to prove that they are a team who should be able to be contending for a playoff spot year in, year out. So I do think they could definitely use a guy like Saros. Now, they've obviously shown this year that their weakness isn't goaltending. Reimer has not done overly well. He's probably been a really good backup goaltender, but he's not done overly well. Leon has actually saved their season a couple of times, but he's not a starting level goaltender. He's a really good 1B backup goaltender. And then they also have Ville Husso, who's actually been non-existent this year and has been healthy scratched quite a few times this year. So with Husso not being in the lineup, with Reimer being an okay backup, and with Leon playing decently but being more of a suitable for a backup role, I think if they were able to give up some assets to go after Saros and extend Saros, there would be a very likely chance that they do that. Now, the Red Wings are a team who's going to be around the playoff spot, so if they would be willing to move a guy like a first-round pick, maybe a top-level prospect like a Casper or a Willander or something like that, and then maybe another couple of pieces like maybe a second or third-round pick and another piece off their 4 group, I do wonder if the Predators will be willing to move Saros. I think that would be a very fantastic piece there for the Red Wings. If they were to move Husso to the Predators, bring in Saros, and they don't even need to have an extension. I mean, they could run with Saros for us next year, have a guy like Leon be the backup, and then eventually after that, they can have Costa be the NHL starter. So I think they could definitely go after a guy like Saros Saros. And I think they're sort of an under-the-radar team who I think could go after a guy like Saros. I think Detroit is a team we're going to have to watch out for in the goalie market this offseason. Another team is Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, they're probably going to have a new GM at some point in the not-too-distant future. There's a very likely chance that that does happen. And this Columbus Blue Jackets team is in desperate need of making the playoffs. I mean, they've missed the playoffs for the past couple of seasons. They've not looked overly good. And at the very least, they need some more better performances. Now, we've talked about this before. Merzlikins does not want to remain in Columbus long-term. He wants to go to a place where he can sort of be the starter, and he doesn't feel that he can do that in Columbus. They have a solid backup goaltender in Tarasov, who I think in a couple of years' time could be a starter. So if the Jackets were to move a couple of assets, move Merzlikins, move maybe a first-round pick, maybe not this year's first-round pick, but maybe move like a conditional first-round pick for next year, move like a forward prospect. They have a lot of decent prospects in the forward group and the defensive end, so move one or two prospects, maybe like a third-round pick, plus a guy who's on the roster. That could make a deal work. And then if they feel that they can sign him, sign Saros, like a 7 or 8 year deal with the AV of $8.5 million. I would not be overly shocked if the Jackets were a player for a team with a goaltender. I mean, they could go after Saros. I could always see him go after a guy with term like a Gibson or a Markstrom. So we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens there, but I could definitely see the Jackets be an interesting name to watch out for in the Saros sweepstakes. Another one will be the Seattle Kraken. The Kraken have not had overly great goaltending over the past little while now. Over their good stretches of game time this year, it has been Joey Daccord. He's been fantastic this year. Grubauer's been up and down this year. I mean, he hasn't been overly bad, not as bad as he was in the first year, but he's also not been overly great this year. So I do wonder if the Kraken do want to make a goaltending move. They keep Daccord as like the backup for 1B and then bring in a new goaltender and move Grubauer. I do wonder if they could move Grubauer to a team like Nashville and bring in Saros and have that sort of be like a solid swap. I mean, Grubauer I think still has 2 or 3 years left, I think, on his contract, so he's still got a couple of years left on his deal, but I could see this something like Grubauer. The Kraken have a lot of really good forward prospects, so throw a forward prospect or two in there. They throw in maybe another roster player and maybe like a first-round pick, and I think that could be intriguing enough for the Predators. So I think while the teams like LA, New Jersey, Ottawa are going to be the teams to maybe really watch out for when it comes to Saros or Markstrom or Gibson sweepstakes, 3 teams we really need to keep our eye on this offseason, in my opinion, when it comes to the goalie market, and especially the Saros sweepstakes, would be Columbus, Detroit, and Seattle. I think all 3 of those teams are a good goaltender away from potentially getting to that next step. Detroit from being a consistent playoff team, and Columbus and Seattle from making it back to the playoffs. So interesting stuff there, but those are 3 teams that I do think could really have some interest in Saros. And lastly, we're going over to Leon Draisaitl. Is there a very likely possibility that after next year's offseason, Draisaitl is no longer a member of the Edmonton Oilers? Now, Leon Draisaitl was talking about this a little while ago, and he says that he thinks that the Oilers would be open to signing Draisaitl, and that even though it would cost them a lot of money, they would be wanting to sign Draisaitl. But he thinks that Draisaitl and his camp may want to wait a little bit to see how the market sort of plays out, and that Edmonton may want to try and sign Draisaitl right on July 1st because he's eligible to extend on July 1st this year, so only a couple months away from that. So with that in mind, he thinks that this could be a long and drawn-out negotiation, and if that's the case, then there could wind up being a separation. Now, I think there's a very likely possibility Draisaitl does not stay. Now, if you look at their cap situation right now, sure, the cap's going up. Sure, they're going to have a little more cap flexibility, but they don't have too many guys coming off their books over the next 2 years. Definitely over the next year. I think there's only like Cody Ceci who's going to be coming off the books, and they have to pay guys like Bouchard, who after the year he's having this year is probably going to want like a 6 to 7 year deal with a V of like $7.5 to $8.5 million, and Draisaitl, who I think would probably consider himself as one of the better players in the NHL, one of the top 5 players. I'm not exactly sure if he would upend Matthews' $13.25 million, but I would not be overly surprised if he asked for something like $12.5 million, maybe slightly below what McDavid's currently making right now. So I definitely think that's a very likely possibility. Now, $12.5 million, if you're going to be paying McDavid, let's say $14.5 million in the new year, the year afterwards, are you really going to be paying Draisaitl $12.5 million and McDavid $14.5 million? I don't think you can really do that. So I'm not exactly sure if the Edmonton Oilers will be able to afford him. On top of that, if the Oilers have another first-round exit or a second-round exit or an earlier exit in the playoffs, would Draisaitl even want to extend in Edmonton? I mean, his entire playoff tenure with the Edmonton Oilers, I mean, he's gone to the second round a couple of times, he's gone to a conference final, but he's never gone to a Stanley Cup final with the Edmonton Oilers. And I think he's been there for like 10+ seasons right now. So it's interesting to note. I'm not exactly sure what will happen with Draisaitl, but it's definitely an interesting situation to watch out for over the next year. I mean, we looked about the Nylander situation and how that was interesting. Draisaitl is going to be an even more interesting, because as much as Nylander was having a good season and showed how good of a player he is in that top four, core four for the Maple Leafs, Draisaitl is even a more important player to the Edmonton Oilers. And if the Oilers lose Draisaitl, whether it be via a trade at next year's trade deadline or via free agency if he walks, that's going to be a major blow for the Edmonton Oilers and their team. And if Draisaitl leaves, will McDavid even want to stay? So it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, on the open market, I could see Draisaitl getting like $12.5, maybe even $13 million. In Edmonton, I think maybe he takes a little bit of a discount. Maybe he signs for like $11.5, $12 million, but I can't see him signing for anything less than $11.5 million. He's a really good player. He's one of the best players in the NHL right now, and I think he should be paid accordingly. So at this point in time, it seems like Darren Dreger is skeptical of the Edmonton Oilers being able to sign him. He thinks that it's slim chances right now that Draisaitl signs, and of course things can easily change, but if Draisaitl is no longer with Edmonton, are they even a playoff team at that point in time? Draisaitl's a 50-goal scorer. He's a 100-point player. He can produce really good numbers at a consistent level. He doesn't need to play with McDavid, and I think on a number of different teams he'll be a number one center. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. It's going to be an interesting situation to watch going into this offseason and possibly leading on into next year's season and into next year's offseason. Does Draisaitl remain with Edmonton? That's going to be an interesting thing to note over the next couple of weeks. Definitely. I'll have your guys' thoughts on all this down in the comment section below. So I'm going to talk for today. What do you think of what happens with Draisaitl? Could he be traded at some point? Do you think he walks as a free agent? Will he resign with Edmonton? Definitely have your guys' thoughts on that. Do you think Saros could be moved to a team like Detroit, Columbus, or Seattle, or any goaltenders in that matter? Do you think that the Kraken, Jackets, or Red Wings could be big players for goaltender? Love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. Do you see the DeBrusk heading out west to either West Canada or Seattle, to a team like Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, or Seattle? Definitely love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. Plus, what do you think about the injury updates and the signings from the past couple of days? Definitely love to hear your guys' thoughts on all of that down in the comment section below. So I'm going to talk about for today. We're going to like this video. If you'd like to subscribe down below, thank you for your support and those who help you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below, and don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section below discussing all discussed in today's video. Also a blog talking about news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So if you check that out, I'll leave a link to that in the description below, and I can't wait to see you guys all for next video. See you guys soon.